It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Smooth and Savvy is joined by Light and Fluffy for an hour of talk, music, and fun, along with our own Periscope girl. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Smooth and Savvy himself, Douglas Coleman.
Oh, Haiti, oh, Heidi, he. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? Today, it's really cold here. I don't know why, but I think winter is starting to come. It got to the point where we didn't even need the air conditioning on. That's when you know it's cold in Thailand. When you don't have to have the air on, it's cold outside. At least that's what the locals say, so I'll take their word for it. But I did notice a chill in the air, that's for sure. So get your pumpkins out and get the frost on them. And Halloween is just around the corner. Speaking of spooky and scary, well, okay, I should probably introduce my co-host first. Yeah, she's spooky and scary, but always light and fluffy. And here she is, Cindy Diadamo. Hey, Cindy, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Douglas?
Good. I figured I better get you out here since I'd be talking to myself otherwise. I wanted to mention the Burbs again. I think we had episode 2 last Thursday, and it is getting creepier, don't you think?
It is right in time for those frosty pumpkins.
Yes, exactly. I know the timing couldn't have been better to put this show out right for Halloween. And next week is going to be episode 3, and it just even gets more creepy. So please tune in to that on Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and go to carmentheateronline.com, and you can find all the links to where it is. It's being broadcast on Spreaker, and then it gets uploaded to YouTube. You can get it in any one of those places. If you can't make it at the 10 o'clock Eastern Time Thursday slot, you can play it anytime you like on a playback. Okay, so we were talking about frost on the pumpkins, and this is always reminds me of Halloween costumes. Yeah.
Did you dress up as anything in particular as you were growing up? Do you remember anything you liked being,
Well, the one thing I do remember was that Halloween was, there was a lot more of it going on back then. I think all those idiots poisoning candy and razor blades and apples and things like that have kind of put the damper on Halloween. The kids don't seem to come around. I can remember even when I was living in Boston area that every year they seemed like less and less kids would come. But when I was a kid, it was like the entire neighborhood turned out. And it was a huge deal. Yeah.
We went out in droves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, parents would like drive you around and stuff. Well, people didn't worry about that. I mean, did you ever worry, or did you ever have anybody tell you, oh, be careful of strangers and things like that? That wasn't around in the 70s. That just wasn't happening. Kids were safe to go out and walk around wherever they wanted to go.
It was fun to dress up because you could be your alter ego or your favorite hero. I know I was a princess when I was little, and then when I was a teenager, I was like a punk rocker, and then when I was in college, I was Boy George.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Oh, I was never Boy George. I'm trying to think what I did. The one year that I really felt proud of my costume was I went out as a robot, and I took 2 cardboard boxes, one a large one like a TV box and a smaller one like a box that a basketball might come in, and then I used that as my head, my helmet. And all I did was wrap all the boxes up in tinfoil and then put tinfoil antennas sticking up. And, it was pretty basic, but people...
It was fun.
People complimented it. They thought it was good. And I remember that we used to take pillowcases out for our bags for the candy because those stupid plastic pumpkins didn't hold anything. Those would fill up so fast. So we took pillowcases, and we would come back with a pillowcase full of candy.
Oh, and you had so much junk, and you could dump it all over the floor and root through it. It was great.
Yeah. Those were the days. I don't know. Do you still get kids coming to trick or treat at your place? I mean, is it still going on?
We don't get very many. And in fact, what they do a lot of now are the organized parties where they're supervised, where the kids just come in costume and then they give out little packages of candy. But that's sort of not as cool as walking around the whole neighborhood knocking on doors and stuff.
Yeah, well, I guess unfortunately there's just too many crazies out there now that I don't know that if I had kids, I don't know if I would trust them to go out. I trust the kids.
Yeah,
I don't trust the people lurking out there, you know? I mean, kids are getting shot at school all the time now. It's like
so a lot of the things that were the customs, you know, because of the times, they're all going to switch. But that's just something cool that I remember that I loved was the dressing up and it was the thing. What are you going to be this Halloween? Everybody would talk about.
Oh, right. And you'd plan for like weeks in advance of what you were going to be.
So if
right?
you would pick a costume now, what would you be? If you went to an adult theme party, you know, for Halloween, what would you be?
I think I would go as a fish.
It's funny because I was going to say I would go as a mermaid. We would make a great duo.
Yeah, I think a fish. I think definitely. Like a swordfish. And I would get the barbed thing and stick it on my head. And,
oh, that's cool. Yeah. I just wanted the mermaid because I thought I could wear like a turquoise sequin something, you know, which normally I would not be wearing. So.
Well, if you get one tight enough, you're not going to be able to sit down, you know.
Well, who cares?
You have to stand up. Well, who was it that did that? Daryl Hannah.
Right. In Splash.
Right. Yeah, I think that came up in my interview with Chris Schindler. There's that trumpet sound again. Well, the trumpet sound on the Douglas Coleman Show means that we have something to feature or some special announcement. In this case, since we had mentioned Chris Schindler with the conversation about Daryl Hannah, I wanted to play one of Chris's songs that I absolutely love. We've played it a couple of times on this show, but I just can't get enough of this song. It is a great, great song. And for songwriters who are aspiring to be a good songwriter, you need to take note of this song because although it sounds simple, there's a lot going on underneath. There's more to it than sort of meets the ear if you're not really paying attention to it. The Beatles were sort of masters at being able to create a song that sounded really simple, and yet it was quite complex musically. So it was like something for everybody. On the one hand, you know, people who weren't musically attuned could just enjoy the song because it was kind of catchy and poppy. And on the other hand, musicians respected it because, they threw in that little weird thing, or they did this little funky thing with the chords. This song has that kind of element about it, but the way that Chris plays his particular chords, he plays them different than a lot of other people play them. And so it gives the sound a different sort of flavor that you might not understand why, but it's definitely in there. So we're going to play this song. This is by Villa Avenue, written by Chris Schindler, and it's called Running in Circles.
that part with like the extra guitars in the beginning. Like, it sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, great song. Thank you, Chris, for writing that. That's a beautiful song. And I think Villa Avenue is going to be having some new material coming out shortly. So definitely looking forward to that. And probably have them back on the show to help promote their new stuff. Anyways, keep up the great work, Chris. Love it. What else is going on, Cindy?
Weren't we running through the idea at one point in another conversation about the old Star Trek series?
Oh yeah, one of my favorite shows. That was a great show. Very ahead of its time too.
I loved it. Who was your favorite character?
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably have to say Spock in the original series.
Well, in the original one, I was so young when it was on. I didn't realize how campy it was until now, looking back, it's kind of hilarious. But I loved the way the characters were all very much overblown with their personalities. And, Bones was so dry and Spock was so intellectual and the captain was kind of cool and hunky. But I always loved Uhura, Lieutenant Uhura, because of course she was the lady. And I thought she was rad with her big hair and her earrings and her cool eyelashes. And so I wanted to be her when I grew up. No, I thought the show was so interesting. And I loved the little, what were they, like walkie-talkie things? What do they call those things they use?
The communicators, yeah, which we have now. They're called cell phones.
It's like cell phones.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking when I was looking. I was thinking, wow, they were really right about some stuff. As crazy as it was, they were really right.
Well, then they had the video phones, and that's a reality now. There were quite a few things that they got right. I'm trying to think, the tricorder scanner thing. They do have something like that at the doctor's office now that it picks up, your heart rate and blood pressure and things like that.
How about when they stuck all the people in the chamber? I don't know what it was called, and it looked like a tube went around you, and then you transported.
That was called the transporter. Yeah, we haven't got to that point yet. We're not quite there.
And what was
yet.
that supposed to be based on? A principle of what? Because I am totally nuts.
Well, it took your molecules and scrambled them up and turned you into pure energy, and then blasted you over a beam of light to a specific point on a map, and then reassembled you again.
Like in Willy Wonka, where they did with that little Mike TV kid. He was the brat who only watched TV, and he would only eat TV dinners, and his mother was very indulging, and so he wanted to be the first kid transmitted by TV, and they were transmitting chocolate, and that had worked, but it made him into this little teeny tiny thing, and then they had to take him to the taffy pulling room to stretch him out into a regular kid again.
Oh, okay. Now I remember.
Yeah.
This was the original one with Gene Wilder, right?
Yeah, the cool one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I kind of remember that part.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was sort of a cartoon version of what Star Trek was doing. I mean, Star Trek, the idea of the transporter is, I suppose, theoretically possible. We don't have the technology at this point to do it. There was that movie, too, that kind of hit on that. Remember the one with Jeff Goldblum called The Fly?
Oh, yeah, The Fly.
Yeah, that was, they'd used some of that sort of theory in that movie, too. I wanted to mention something to you, Cindy, and see if you agreed with this or not. But I've noticed that the heavier I get into social media like Facebook and Twitter, I've noticed that a particular phrase in our English language has changed definition over the years. And I think social media has really changed it. When somebody says to you, I know them, it used to mean that you actually had met this person in person, you'd seen their face, you'd shaken their hand, and that you had some sort of a conversation with this person, be it lunch or, something. Now, when people tell me, oh, I know that person, it could mean that they simply liked their page on Facebook or that they follow them on Twitter. And that constitutes knowing somebody these days? Is that really accurate?
Well, I mean, it's the vernacular, so to speak. It's kids also say that they date online, which basically means they chat back and forth, because to me, that's no date at all. You're not having a pizza or seeing a movie or whatever, going bowling. But yeah, I think that the fact that social media makes everyone accessible to everyone, the idea of knowing someone can be just that you've, messaged back and forth or something like that. Absolutely.
Well, it seems like it sort of cheapens the definition of "I know you," doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah, but it's a sign of the times. It's the sign of technology. I mean, people would rather send a text than pick up the phone. Most kids text all the time, and they rarely call unless it's their mom nagging at them. My son will attest to that. They'd rather shoot you a text, and even if the text is one line, that constitutes a conversation. So it's
wow.
just the speed. It's the speed of everything. I mean, when is the last time you've gotten a letter from a friend?
Well, never from a friend.
Exactly. I mean, those cool days of like pen pals and all of that neat stuff, and it's all gone. It's all, just one line on a messenger now.
If you're late with your credit card payment, then you get a letter. That seems to be
Yeah,
about the
those
only
are the
time
letters
you
that
get one.
everybody doesn't want to get.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, once again, here is Periscope Girl calling in. Hello, Periscope Girl.
Hi, Periscope Girl.
Aye, Captain. Ahoy, Cindy. Periscope have now made a code generator which will allow you to add an on-air button to your webpage. Avast! I've been putting on the on-air button, but it's been going a shambles. Grrr, grrr. I was about to ambush the swabs that invented it and feed them piecemeal to the rats in the cellar, but ha, I played about with the code a bit and I figured it out. So to add yours, go to www.periscope.tv/embed, cut and paste your code into your HTML code. But if you like me, you hit upon a problem on your WordPress site, then go to my website, www.jane.yates.co.uk, where I have written out the instructions for you. Yarr! So, let's sail away, my hearties, and have fun on the Periscope. Ha, 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 ha. I'll be casting off now. Over and out, Captain.
Okay, thank you, Periscope Girl, for that lovely report. And down she goes again. And we will be checking back with her next week. And now, once again, it's time for Lady Lake Corner.
Hello and welcome to Lady Lake Corner for the week of October 13th through October 20th. You can read about our talented roster at www.reverbnation.com/label/Lady Lake Music and visit us on Instagram at Lady Lake Music. A big weekend of activity was had by our artists, with many events and shows taking place. International Nova, who is number 5 in Atlanta hip hop, attended the A3C event as well as the BET Awards, and we have some great event photos, including green carpet shots, since the event was sponsored by Sprite. Rick Winnow, who is number 18 in New Jersey singer-songwriter, played with the Pat D'Annunzio birthday show cast with Marshall Crenshaw and Suzanne Vega, also the Hooters. David Martinez, who is number 1 in alternative in Corpus Christi, opened for the Statesboro Review in Port Aransas, Texas, and all photos are posted on our Instagram, so stop on by. And that's it for this week's edition of Lady Lake Corner.
Okay, Cindy, thank you very much for that Lady Lake Corner, and we'll be right back with Bill Boulden.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. See? Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Wrong hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, with me now is Bill Boulden, who is a musician with an exciting and innovative new project. His Kickstarter campaign raised over $25,000 for his musical project entitled Music to Die Alone in Space To, which is a music industry disrupting event. I like disturbing anyways, that features a brand new distribution method. It's the first album to be re-recorded in its entirety for every purchaser, making every copy of the album completely unique. When I saw this, I must admit that I was intrigued, as really anything to disrupt the current music industry is okay in my book. So I'm anxious to talk to him. Please welcome Bill Boulden.
Yay. Well, hello.
How are you,
Happy
Bill?
to be here, Douglas.
Great. Well, tell me about this
Great.
project, because I can't even fathom how this would work, that you would re-record the album for everybody that bought it, unless only 3 people bought it. You're going to have to explain how you're going to do that.
You're close. 310 copies is the actual number. So the Kickstarter has come to completion with 310 total copies of the album I'm on the hook to produce. And this is where being an electronic musician really comes in handy and changes what you can do. Most tracks on the album, I wrote them, and should I say programmed them, because it is an electronic album, with the idea that they would be different every time they output. There would be passages where, rather than program a synth, the way someone would traditionally do, for instance, saying, you're going to play this melody, here are your MIDI notes, do-do-do-do. You instead write a small script or a program that says, you're going to draw from this pool of instructions that build a melody and play that instead. And so I can take tracks on this album, rewind them to the beginning, play them, and have my mastering software recording it, and it sounds completely different than the last playthrough. And so it varies from track to track. One of the things I did on this album, Music to Die Alone in Space 2, is each track explored a different space concept. It explored a different idea of what it might be like to be trapped out in space. And then simultaneously, I chose that as a sound designer as a chance to explore a new way to make a non-determinate sound. So for instance, let me give an example. There's one track, Adrift, the opening track, which is very striking. It opens with the astronaut's suit beeping while they say a voiceover saying, here's how I came to be lost in space. The beeps in that are random every time. So that track isn't too random. The beeps just are always different. But then there's another track called Rotations, where the idea is that the astronaut is spinning and you hear things passing overhead, like you're rotating and you're seeing a moon continually go by. And I make clever use of the stereo field left-right to change the astronaut's rate of rotation. And that's different every time the track plays. So there's a little new thing in each track. And what happens is just between 310 copies of exporting these tracks, that magic happens in some of them. They're all very much like the same track, like the same family. When you hear your rotations, that will sound a lot like someone else's rotations. But there will also be enough where somebody who doesn't know what's going on can call out and be like, you know, there's a moment at the minute mark of my version of the track I really like. There's a singular note that shines out and rings. That's pretty. I like that in that copy.
So it's actually the computer program that's creating different... I'm trying to equate this somehow musically. If you have a bar of music and you've got 4 notes on it, the notes are going to change every time?
In some tracks, that is what happens. Yep. The notes will change. In other tracks, I might have made it so that the notes are the same, but the chord that is played along with them changes. In other tracks, I might make it so you can hear the astronaut's heartbeat beating as part of the percussion. It's like boom, 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 boom. And the heart rate might vary every time the track is played. There's about 3 to 4 different flavor ingredients in every track, and those combine with things that are conventionally written.
Okay, so it's conceivable you could just go on to infinity with slight variations of this album.
Sure, although there's some people have asked me if I, could sell many more copies, and the answer is I can't, because at 310, that's about the max I'm willing to produce, since I insist on having manual oversight of every copy. I'm listening to make sure, as I record them, that unpleasant things don't happen. There's always a loose chance, for instance, since I'm trying to build a soundscape that sounds like space, there's lots of reverb and delay being used, and so I would never want like a delay to get caught in an infinite loop and create a very unpleasant feedback effect or something that ruins the track. So I am listening every time. For instance, yesterday I have a track called Absolute Zero, and I started recording versions of that while I went about my day, and I recorded the first 105 versions of Absolute Zero, and I was just listening throughout the whole time. So hearing that track played 105 times, And at some point, I take some manual oversight. For instance, at about the 25 track mark, I felt that I had fully exhausted the number of ways that absolute zero could sound different meaningfully. So I actually went in and changed things manually. I gave it a new bass line, and I wrote some sounds to be different to kind of get a fresh slate for another 25 renders. It turns out that there's an interchange of random with manual oversight. So there's a little bit of the artist's love in each copy too. There's a couple tracks where halfway through the render, I'll reach over to the synth and just kind of grab a knob and turn it just to throw somebody some flavor on their copy. Like they get a little artist twiddling in that wasn't just the computer.
So there is certainly a performance element to this album. It's not just completely 100% computer created.
Right. There's both. There's performance, there's artistic decisions being made between the tracks, and there's random determination. It's a lot of things coming together.
Now, was this your project solely, or are you working with somebody else on it?
Well, it's sort of, I'm at the vanguard, but because of the need for art and voice, I'm bringing in a team of people to supply voiceovers. So I should talk about both of those elements. So another thing is, part of the spin of this album is that it's the world's first unique album. And I should talk a little bit about what drew me to make this.
Sure.
I think that we're living in an age of disposable music. Especially, I think when you sign up for Spotify for the first time, there's this sickening feeling you have a little bit where you realize all the music you ever bothered to collect is kind of like it never matters that you bothered collecting it, because you can just listen to that on Spotify, but you can also listen to anything else. You have the world at your fingertips. I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but when you're using these on-demand services, you can listen to anything in the world and you can't find anything you like.
Well, I agree with you 100%. And I also appreciate what you said about music being disposable. It's something that I have a rant about on probably every one of my shows when I have musicians on, is that I've found that what's being pumped out by the mainstream major labels is unacceptable in terms of calling it music, because I'm an old school musician. I still really play things and really sing, and I appreciate the music that I grew up with. And I do get that sort of, oh, well, you're just an old man kind of thing. Certainly my father didn't appreciate Led Zeppelin when I played it at full volume, but at least it was real music. And so when you're talking about music being disposable, I absolutely agree with you. And Spotify is something that you might as well be giving away your music. You see, when you said collecting music, what came to mind for me was actually going out and buying music. And it seems like it's something that people don't want to do anymore, which is too bad, because it's hard for artists to make money solely on record sales. You know, now they've got to tour, and now they've got to try to find sync license deals and things. It was easier when people actually bought music. So.
Well, I completely agree. I don't share, I think, your sentiment that today's music is any worse. I'm very much a fan of pop music right now. And okay. I think we can agree to disagree. I happen to love Taylor Swift. But I mean just music consumption habits. I listen to tracks and throw them away, you know, and especially I'm a DJ. And when you're a DJ, house music is the ultimate in disposable tracks. You find a track, it's got a sweet beat, you play it, and your whole job is to mix it into another track that's as similar as it can be.
Right.
So that nobody knows the difference. And so almost by its means, it demands that you just consume 1,000 tracks that sound the same. And there's no time to love any individual album. I still buy all my music. I refuse not to, just because it's a karma thing for me. As an artist, I love when my music is bought, so I will return that favor to everyone else. But I'm quickly finding it harder and harder to buy music in ways that people will sell it to me, because people don't even expect me to buy it. They just put it on YouTube, and it's like, well, I would buy this if I could. And they're like, well, give me 5 cents for an ad view.
It's also the way that music is created these days that makes it more disposable. Back in the old days when people used to record on analog tape and they would run a performance, they would basically record a live performance. That took take after take after take after take. And eventually you got one that was just so incredible. And a lot of the times the reason it was so incredible was because you just did it 35 times. And at the 36th take, you finally got that, whatever it was, captured the magic in that second. These days, when everything is sort of put out on a grid and everything is cut and pasted, the vocals, I think it cheapens the whole process of the music. So therefore, it just becomes disposable by default. That's sort of how I feel about it.
I can agree with some of that. Well, so what this is an attempt to do is I think you see people pushing back against that disposability. When you bother buying vinyls, in particular, people like vinyls. And vinyl, I think, is an attempt to say, well, I'm clearly not just going to stream this album and then forget about it forever. I'm going to have it. I'm going to love it and cherish it.
Right.
And I think some of the resurgence of vinyl, people like to blame it on hipsters and stuff, but I do think it's an attempt by people to want their music to mean more to them again. It's a way of showing respect for the artist. The other thing is people who are audiophiles who have begun to demand that their downloads be in FLAC or OGG or even 2496 quality music because they don't want it all streamed like junk and played out of a phone. They're trying to listen to it with real intent again. And so that's where the urge for this project comes from is, well, you know what's a step further than meaning something because it's a vinyl is meaning something because this is an album upon which your variation is unique to you. And that's the really impressive thing is somebody's going to get copy number 67 and it's going to sound like Music to Die Alone in Space 2, like everyone else's does with the same songs. But maybe on their copy, the void is especially disturbing and the oblivion is peaceful. And they asked for a voiceover to be done by a Japanese woman speaking in Japanese. And somebody else has their copy, and it's copy number 216. And their copy features an uplifting oblivion that ends on a dark note all of a sudden. And their copy is being done by a man speaking in a German accent. That's a new kind of ownership. This is something a person can treasure. It's a little dialogue between me and them. You know, this is your copy of the album that I spent 2 hours making just for you, which is why, you know, it's a $65 album.
Well, I think it's an incredible idea. Obviously, I've never seen anything like it, and I was intrigued when I read it. Now that I understand how you do it, I think it's tremendous. I think it's autographing the album through the music for your fan.
Absolutely. And there are some people who are getting little Easter eggs, like I said, because in many of these tracks, I'm upwards of 100 times having recorded them. They've evolved with me. And some of them do, some of them don't. For instance, I'm still finding Rotations is my favorite track on the album, and the song Rotations is going strong, pretty much sounding the same well into the 70s, which is how many I've recorded of that one so far. But, you know, Absolute Zero was due for almost a rewrite at around the 60 mark because I thought to myself, I've heard everything I have got to hear for this track. The next 60 will just be maybe a different song. One of the cool things that's happening is I'm seeing the people in the Kickstarter spring up a little community around this, actually, where they're discussing putting together a site, whether it's going to be a website or maybe just a subreddit or a hashtag or a Facebook group where people can trade their copies because people are already agreeing that they're going to pool their copies and try and assemble the perfect copy of the album, where people are going to share all their tracks and decide the best version of Music to Die Alone in Space 2 that can exist is if we take the copy number 50 of this one guy's track, and if we use Jim's version of the track Neutrinos, etc. And I think that's just sort of, I mean, that's amazing when you see people begin to give it a life of its own like that. I never thought of something like that happening with this project.
I think that's interesting. It sounds like it could become a cult thing. You know, like
Right. At
Rocky
which point,
Horror.
I think the people who signed up for original versions of this are going to be very happy because I am tagging all the renders with A. So for instance, their tracks will say that they have track Gravitons or Pulsar version A175, just in case I ever do a B run. I have about 600 hours of work ahead of me on this project. The odds of a B run do seem distant right now. This may be all there is. As a matter of fact, there's one tier that 10 people signed up for, which was the $100 album, which was the same as a 65 one, but I don't listen to it while I record it, which is something that is a brand new concept, I think, in music distribution at all. After I've been exporting so many of these, there's the chance for me to tweak some knobs and then turn the sound off and walk away while a copy of the album exports. And some people paid extra for that privilege. So I've been marking some of these tracks unheard. For instance, just looking at it right now, Oblivion render 145, I did not listen to while it output. And that's going to go on somebody's album. There's going to be 10 people who receive copies of the album that I don't know what I'm sending them. There may be special moments or organic moments that happen on their copy, or I don't know what the voiceover performance is going to sound like. And when they open up their rewards for the first time and listen to this set of MP3s, they'll be the first human to hear it. And I think that's a really daring move. And I hope that's as special for them as it is for me. It honestly feels very intimate for me to be making these.
I guess I don't quite understand what the appeal is to say, oh, I've got a copy that he never listened to.
Well, some people prefer knowing that I helped make it. Other people kind of like one of the cool things about music is it's different things to different people. And one element that resonated with some people, I think, is the absolute solitude of the album's idea. Some people really, they want that I'm dying alone in space element. And I think that makes this the perfect vehicle for such a stunt, because what could be more alone than something like I'm out here, I'm floating in space, I'm adrift, I have an hour left of oxygen, there's no other humans around, and I'll never talk to anyone again. That's the perfect envelope for putting an album like this in, where it's like, here's your song that only you ever hear.
All right, I get that from that perspective, yeah. All right, that makes sense. Because it's sort of, it ties the whole theme together. It's truly your virginal copy of this song. Never touched by other human ears.
That's kind of the cool part about it. And then just these voiceovers I've been receiving. So when people ask for their copy, I have a library of 12 voiceovers I can apply to it. And these voiceovers were voted on by the backers to help represent as wide a swath of cultures and languages as I could, so that for every backer, there would hopefully be one performance that would really resonate with them. And so they're going to have a chance to listen to all of these before they get their copy, listen to all 12 samples of voice performances and say, as an Indian woman, I really like that you got the Hindi woman speaking one. That makes it feel like it's me. I want her on my copy. Or some people might say, you have the one male in a standard Midwestern American voice, that's me. But then there's also another male copy that's a very emotionally vulnerable one, where the person starts tearing up a little and it's really hard. They're talking about how they're going to die out here and they're choking up a bit. And maybe somebody wants their copy to sound like that. And so I'll put that voiceover on top of it while it exports. But maybe somebody doesn't want that. Maybe that ruins it for them. So that's just another layer of how this can be a different project for everyone. I think it's all said and done. It's a new idea in music. And one thing I'd like to point out is, I called it a music industry disruptor. One thing that's always amused me as an observer is watching how people come up with bold new ideas, and then sometimes the music industry is really flubbing it sort of to try and adopt them. So I remember, when Radiohead premiered Pay What You Want, and that happened when they were off label, when they were releasing their own albums and they didn't have to belong to a record label, and they premiered Pay What You Want for our album. And then a year later, all the indie people are doing it. And the record companies are like, what? How does this work? We're actually jacking the prices to $12.99 on a lot of things in iTunes. Or when Nine Inch Nails decided that for year zero, their one album, they were creating an alternate reality universe to support it, complete with websites, performance art that went along with it. And I saw someone comment, wow, that's going to change everything. I can't wait to see how the Black Eyed Peas will do their alternate reality universe for their next album. And so this is the kind of thing where it works for me because I can make 310 copies. It's going to be a ton of work. It's going to be a quarter of a year's work, but I can do it. But I would very much like to see, when this idea catches fire, how the Black Eyed Peas are going to make their Everyone's album is unique.
Well, yeah, I would like to see that as well. I wanted to ask you something about this Kickstart campaign. You had this going for how long?
About 23 days, I think.
Wow, that's not very long.
No.
How did you, now the people that contributed to it, did they get to sort of name what they wanted to do on their album? Is this like a made to order?
Yes, as every person signed up, I asked them, please tell me your wish list of voiceover people. Please tell me who you want. Are you going to want it done by a Russian man or an Argentinian man speaking in Spanish, etc.? And people would message me back. Some people would say, I only want one thing. Like, it matters to me. I want this to be somebody imitating the Hal voice from 2001.
Oh, okay.
And other people would say, here's 6 things I think might sound neat. I would be happy with any of these. And so I've just been taking notes and building a huge list. Then at the completion of the Kickstarter, which was last Friday, I sent a message out to all the backers saying, okay, guys, here are 38 different kinds of voices people wanted. I can hire 12. You can all vote. And the results are still coming back now. The poll doesn't close until Friday, but I have a very good idea who I've been hiring. There's also some voices I got ahead of time because as I quickly exceeded my funding goals, I realized I had what it took to go get celebrities. That was exciting for sort of a small fry like me who's enjoyed moderate success, pretty good success as a DJ, but not much professional success as a songwriter, to be reaching out to the publicists of Hollywood voice actors who do voice performances in movies and video games and TV shows and saying how much to get a voice performance from your client and working that out with them. It's really cool, especially, I guess I'm a little famous now, but I still feel like an outsider. And so when I start talking, the person who did the voice of the Joker in the last Batman video game I played, I'm just like, that's awesome. I'm gonna have your take on my dying astronaut.
So are you going to do another one of these? If this one obviously seems like it was fairly successful.
Yes.
Are you going to do part 2?
Doing another one of these.
Yeah.
Well, talk to me. I'm probably about 100 hours in on my 600 total hours of work. Talk to me again at the end and we'll see what's up. I think I've informally nicknamed the next project Music 2 Die Alone in Space 2. Taking my cue from Too Fast, Too Furious. I don't think I'm going to do this idea again, though. I think that I'm going to make another unique to every purchaser album, but I think that maybe the next time I might actually dare to do something acoustically. Not an electronic album, but an acoustic one in which there are instruments being played, and I actually dare to re-record those. I don't know. I'm trying to decide. We'll see how much this burns me out. There will definitely be a follow-up project to this, and next time I'm gonna go crazy with it.
Okay, well, you sent me one MP3, which I'd like to play. It's called Void Render 33. Void PR Render 33.
Yes, I was for every press outlet I go on, I render a unique copy of the track Void just for them. So this is the 33rd piece of press that I've been on, and you have the 33rd output of the track Void. Before you play it, I'd like to just point out a few things. There's an oscillating pattern that is the hallmark of the track that sings do 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 do. That pattern always goes a little bit like what I hummed, but it boops and beeps in a different pattern on every copy. The order of the boops and beeps is always different. Then, at the midway point of the track, there's this huge consciousness obliterating synth that comes in that sounds like, wah! And that sound is mixed in a reverb space where I'm using one of those reverb designers that lets you shape the room that it's modeling.
Oh, I've
and
seen
between
those. Yeah.
every render, I redraw the room to be something else. So that sounds different for the room in every copy.
Okay.
And so that's a couple things to listen for when you play this void.
Okay. Well, let's have a listen to it now. Ah, just like that. Okay. You know what? I'm glad that you came on the show today because I think you may have assuaged my opinion somewhat about electronic music. I've always thought of electronic music as basically relentless dance music and not music that you would sit and listen to. But with the concept that you've done here with the sort of individual album for every buyer, it creates an atmosphere that you would want to just sit and listen to that album in its entirety.
And I had a feeling you might be skeptical, of course. I could tell. I didn't know if you were skipping around. It sounded like you were skimming through the playback. But, I would not think it to be your kind of music. But it's important to realize that this is not meant to be EDM. It's actually a lot more like soundtrack music for a film that
that's
doesn't
what I was going to say. I was going to say that this has a very much of a soundtrack element because while I was listening to it, conjuring up mental image pictures, the whole thing about dying in space, I mean, it really, I started to picture that, to what that would look like, somebody floating
It's very
around.
patient too. It's an album that takes its time. There's passages like you heard the synths just take their time getting where they're going.
Right. Yeah.
Because you have an hour to work with. And I played it, around a 4-year-old the other day, and they said, "Hey, this sounds like space." And they didn't even know what it was supposed to be about. So I think I may have done my job right.
I think you did. And even for somebody like me who really isn't a fan of electronic music in the traditional sense of electronic music, this is interesting. This is something that I would sit and listen to, or at least put on while I was doing something else, but it would be there as the music, rather than just something that punctuates people going out drinking and dancing.
Yeah, this would actually be extraordinarily poor music for people to drink and dance to.
Well, it's a little slow, yeah, but you know what I'm saying, though. It's that type of music that, like, I can't really tell the difference between house and trance. And I know people go, oh, well, this one's house and this one's trance. In my ear, it doesn't sound any different. But yours is definitely unique. So, yeah, I think you did a great job with that.
Well, there's also something being generated called the canonical copy, which is not everyone could buy in at $65. So there's going to be, I'm releasing 3 versions of this album that are just not unique to people. They're just, I can't submit the same album 310 times to iTunes, but I am making 3 of them with whichever 3 voice performances wind up being my personal favorites. And I'm going to be submitting those to iTunes as traditional albums. So they'll be set in stone. They'll be the same for each time. And that's going to be, I'm going to name them after constellations, I think. So they'll probably be Music to Die Alone in Space to Andromeda, Music to Die Alone in Space to Betelgeuse, and Music to Die Alone in Space to Canis Minor, I think,
okay,
as A, B, and C. And so even though you're not signed up for this Kickstarter, if one day in about December, which is about when this will be done, you head to iTunes and look for Music to Die Alone in Space 2, you'll be able to pick one of those 3 copies and buy it.
Okay. Do you have a website that you can tell so people can go and look and see what this project is all about? I suspect now that nobody can get a personal copy at this point, right? They're all sold out.
The window for that is closed. Sometimes people, after a Kickstarter closes, they let people know, hey, if you PayPal me $65, you can still get a copy. But I'm not doing that because I'm very concerned with successfully delivering a satisfying product to everybody. And this is absolutely the upper limit of what I'm willing to produce right now. To produce any more than this would probably jeopardize the whole project. For instance, like I said, at $2 a copy, if I suddenly sold 1,000 copies, that's 2,000 hours of work, and that's the contents of an entire American work year.
Right.
And so then no one is getting their copies for a year. What's more likely is that maybe there will be a second print run at some point. But who knows? I may do an entirely different project next before reprinting the first.
Okay, but people will still be able to get the sort of standard copy on iTunes.
That will be sold like
December.
A traditional album. It'll be in Spotify. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be in iTunes. It'll be in Google Play or whatever. It will be available like any normal album would. And even then, you'll have 3 variants. So people who want to buy, 2 copies like a double album can appreciate the contrasts. They can listen to the Andromeda copy and the Betelgeuse copy and hear like, wow, I really prefer the Void from the Andromeda copy because it's not as harsh, but I really like how the neutrinos on the Betelgeuse copy is angrier. I don't know.
Right. Okay. Do you have a Facebook and Twitter where people can just come and say hi to you or something? And
certainly.
see what you're doing?
I'm Spruik on every service, which is my DJ name. So on Twitter, I'm at Spruik, Spruke, kind of like fluke, but Spruik. I'm Spruik on Facebook. I run a podcast called Bump in the Night, which is an hour of EDM every week. Normally, I do highly recommend it to people, but I have a feeling, based on what we've said, it is explicitly not up your alley. But that is available at listentobump.com, which is my main website, and it is where I send people to listen to my weekly show. That's a fresh hour of dance music every Monday, uninterrupted, for 3 years. And other than that, I'm Spruik on YouTube. I'm Spruik on SoundCloud. And if you go to Kickstarter now, I think that kickstarter.com/Spruik. Oh, no, they don't do it like that. Well, to Kickstarter, you're going to have to go to kickstarter.com and search for Music to Die Alone in Space 2. And then you will see my completed project page where it lives for now.
Okay, super. Well, listen, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show, and you have enlightened me to some degree with this music, and I actually did like that. So I may go and get it in December when it comes out, just to do something different, because I honestly haven't bought any music in a while. The stuff that I like gets sort of lost in the stuff that I have to sift through to, check out for prospective guests and things like this. But this one I think I might want to explore on my own.
I'll tell you, it has this going for it. It is like nothing else you've ever heard.
It's unique, and yes, it's definitely unique.
I might even say it's out of this world.
Yeah.
Sorry. This is because I'm trying to, you're saying the show's ending, so I'm trying to get kicked off right at the end.
Oh, I see. Well, can always edit you out if I have to, but...
If the pun was bad enough. Yeah. If I said it was really far out.
Oh, you're getting there. You're getting there real quick. You're getting there. All right, Bill, thank you very much. And
thank you, Doug. It's been a pleasure.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for our show today. I want to thank my special guest, Bill Boulden. A very interesting project that you're working on. Good luck to you. And, of course, thank you to my co-host, Cindy Diadamo, and to our own Periscope girl. This is Douglas Coleman saying good night. To the